The last time I saw my dad, I was 17, standing on our front porch with a duffel bag slung over my shoulder, hands trembling, practically begging him to let me back inside. Now, all these years later, I was walking through the polished marble lobby of the downtown Marriott in heels he never got the chance to see me grow into. Hanging above the entrance to the ballroom was a shiny gold banner that read, "Congratulations, Principal James Walker. 40 years of excellence." The air inside smelled like overpriced salmon and flat champagne. From just outside the double doors, I could hear the applause, the laughter, the clinking of glasses, people toasting him and swapping stories I'd been erased from. I stood there for a second, hovering in the entryway. My own reflection stared back at me in the glass, same sharp jawline he always claimed came from his side of the family. I reached into my coat and pulled out a worn envelope. The paper had yellowed a bit, with a deep crease down the center. My own handwriting stared back at me in smudged blue ink, the letter I'd left behind the night I disappeared, the one no one ever got to read. I wasn't here to ruin his little retirement bash. That would have been too simple. No, I was here because silence had kept him safe for long enough. Because every lie he told about me had settled in as truth. A decade ago, he told anyone who asked, "She ran off. She's not coming back." Well, guess what? I did come back, and I wasn't empty-handed. As the band inside eased into some light jazz, I took that as my cue. I tucked the letter back into my pocket, lifted my chin, and pushed those doors wide open. Heads turned. The room shifted from polite interest to stunned recognition. Champagne flutes paused mid-toast, and the chatter cut off like someone hit mute. And right there in the center of it all, standing beside a giant photo collage filled with smiling student faces and academic awards, was my father. The second his eyes landed on me, his smile fell flat. I smiled anyway. Once upon a time, I was his shining star. He used to parade me around at school board meetings and parent-teacher nights like a trophy, valedictorian, track team, AP classes, flute solos at the winter concert. We'd walk the halls of Walker High, his school, with his hand planted proudly on my shoulder, like I was some kind of walking proof of his legacy. That's my daughter, Anna. Future attorney. Maybe even Harvard. But behind closed doors, his pride came with strings attached. Perfection wasn't encouraged, it was demanded. 1B on a test meant ice-cold silence for days. If I skipped a student council meeting for play rehearsal, he'd say I was wasting my potential. When I was 17, I started writing little scenes, quiet ones about mothers who disappeared and daughters who stayed behind. Just scribbles, really. One day, my drama teacher submitted one without telling me, and it won. Juilliard reached out. Full ride to their pre-college summer program. I waited a couple of days before telling him. Wanted to get the words just right. We were sitting at the kitchen table, eating spaghetti. I finally said, "It's theater, but it's serious. It's real. I think this is what I want." He didn't even glance at me. Just twirled his fork and said, "I didn't raise you to chase pipe dreams." Then he stood up and walked away. What followed wasn't punishment, it was erasure. He didn't yell, didn't argue. He just acted like it never existed. After that, I felt like I was auditioning for a version of myself he'd written, not living my own life. I started sneaking off to rehearse, used a fake name to get shifts at a bookstore so the income wouldn't show up on his taxes. I filled out my FAFSA loan. By the spring of senior year, I had a dorm in New York and a one-way train ticket. The night I left, I wrote a single-page letter by hand. "I love you. I just need space. I'll come back one day." I thought that would be enough. I figured he'd be mad, maybe a little worried. I never imagined that the man who once clapped the loudest at my recitals would rather cut me off completely than meet me halfway. I came back just like I promised on a quiet Sunday afternoon. The train ride home felt endless. I spent the whole time picturing his face, maybe softer, maybe even relieved. I rehearsed my apology in my head. "I'm sorry if I scared you. I needed some air. But I'm not walking away from this dream." But when I reached the front porch, my key didn't work. At first, I figured the lock was stuck. I jiggled it, tried again. That's when I noticed the porch light was off. It had always been on when someone was home. I rang the bell, knocked, waited. Nothing. I called his phone. Straight to voicemail. Then I tried my mom's number, disconnected. And that's when I saw it. Off to the side of the porch swing was my old suitcase, zipped up and sitting there like an unclaimed Goodwill drop-off. On top was a plastic bag holding my birth certificate, my social security card, and a yellow sticky note with 3 words, "You made your choice. Good luck." My hands went numb. I sat on those steps for hours, just staring at the door, hoping maybe, just maybe, it would open if I waited long enough. It never did. Neighbors passed by, walking their dogs, and I could see it in their eyes, pity, disgust, confirmation. They knew. 2 days after I left, I was curled up on my friend Leah's couch, her throw blanket scratchy against my skin, when I finally logged into Facebook. And there it was, my aunt had posted a status the very same day I disappeared. "Please keep our family in your prayers. Anna has run away. She left behind a hateful note, and we're afraid she may be with someone dangerous." The comments poured in like a flood. "So sorry. Praying for you." She always seemed a little troubled. Teenagers these days. He made it sound like I'd run off with some sketchy older guy, like I'd vanished in a fit of rage, unstable and impulsive. My mom blocked my number. My drama teacher, the one who used to believe in me, never replied to another email. A week later, my college acceptance was revoked after someone marked my transcript as incomplete. It wasn't just abandonment. I was erased. And not a single person, none of the people who once called themselves my family, ever reached out to ask what had really happened. That first night on Leah's couch, I sobbed into a sweatshirt rolled up under my head like a pillow. By the 3rd night, I'd figured out how to cry without making a sound. I got a job slinging coffee and hash browns at a dingy 24-hour diner on 6th Street, working the graveyard shift, the kind of place where the coffee's always burnt and nobody cares if your eyes are puffy. I scrubbed floors, picked up extra shifts, and registered for classes at the local community college, paying what I could when I could. No family, no FAFSA, no help. Just me, a beat-up used laptop, and a bank balance that barely saw daylight over $50. I kept to myself. Didn't talk about where I came from. When someone asked about my parents, I'd just say, "They're back east." Technically true. Emotionally, they were gone. But the worst part wasn't the silence. It was how easy it was for everyone to believe I'd disappeared for good. No one searched. No one posted a missing person's photo. No one even checked to see if I was breathing. It was like I'd been a side character in their story all along, someone they could write out without a second thought. Still, little by little, I started building something of my own. I took acting classes at night. Did tech crew on the weekends for tiny off-Broadway shows. Eventually, someone heard a monologue I'd written and said, "This is more than good. This is you." That's when I wrote Inheritance, a one-woman show about a girl erased by her own family. It ran for 3 nights in a black box theater in Brooklyn. Only 10 people showed up, but one of them was a columnist from the New York Times, working on a piece about family estrangement. She asked to interview me. I said yes. The article was titled, "What We Leave Behind When We Leave Home." My father's name wasn't in it. But I know he read it because 3 days after it went live, someone tried to reset the password to my email. I didn't even flinch. By that point, I had a tiny apartment I paid for myself, friends who knew the real story, and a life I'd built from scratch, brick by brick. But even then, the silence from home was still the loudest thing in my world. It all shifted with a message from my cousin Mia. We hadn't spoken since I was 17. She was always the wild one in the family, bleach blonde streaks, always grounded, never quite playing by the rules. That night, she sent me just 6 words, "I found something. It's about you." I didn't answer right away. Just stared at the message like it was a ghost. 3 days passed before my curiosity finally overpowered my instinct to protect myself. I called her. Her voice cracked on the line. I'm sorry I never reached out. I believed what they said. We all did. She explained that she'd been helping her dad clean out their attic, old tax files, dusty Halloween decorations, all the junk her mom used when she taught kindergarten. And at the bottom of one box, tucked inside a Ziploc bag, was a sealed envelope. My name was on it. My handwriting. That slanted blue cursive I hadn't used in years. She opened it. She read it. And just like that, the lies unraveled. I love you. I need space. I'll be back Sunday. No anger. No threats. No storming off into the night. Just a scared, respectful 18-year-old asking for time. Mia told me her dad tried to brush it off. Oh, that old thing. But she knew. He knew. They all knew. My father hadn't just lied. He'd buried the truth, literally, hid my words away in an attic like they were something shameful. Then he rewrote the story to make himself the victim. That night, Mia scanned the letter and emailed it to me. I printed it out, ran my fingers over the creases, and stared at it like it was the last puzzle piece in a life that had never quite fit together until then. I'd been gaslit so hard, I almost forgot it all actually happened. When the retirement party invite hit social media, it was everywhere. Big celebration, local buzz, teachers, alumni, community leaders, all gathering to honor a legacy of integrity. I didn't cry when I saw it, didn't scream, just sat there holding that letter in my hands, thinking, you buried the truth. Well, I'm gonna unearth it right in front of your whole damn legacy. But I didn't jump into it. The letter sat untouched on my desk for days, right next to a candle that had burned down to a stub and a mug of coffee I kept reheating but never drank. Every time I looked at it, all I could see was the silence that swallowed the years after. The missed birthdays. The college I never got to walk into. The life I had to build from dust because someone decided I didn't deserve the truth. Then I saw it on the school district's website. Join us in celebrating Principal Richard Carter's retirement. 40 years of service, leadership, and family. Family. That word felt like a slap. Or maybe a dare. I RSVP'd using my middle name, Elaine. Just one guest. No dietary needs. No +1. I didn't need backup. I had receipts. I booked a flight, borrowed a decent blazer from a friend, and packed 2 things, a printed copy of the letter Mia found in that attic, and a clipping from the essay I wrote for The New Yorker last year. I didn't write a speech. This wasn't about theatrics. It wasn't revenge. It was about the truth, ugly, raw, and impossible to ignore. He built his entire reputation on structure, on shaping young lives. The clipboard, the firm handshake, the hallway walk with a kid under his wing. His bulletin board was full of bright smiles and framed certificates. Except one photo was always missing. Mine. I wasn't going to make a scene. I wasn't going to cry. I was just going to walk in, look him dead in the eye, and remind every person in that room, you don't get to control the narrative just because you're the only one still telling the story. I hadn't seen my mom since I was 18, the night I stood on the porch, duffel bag in one hand, begging her with swollen eyes to unlock the door. She never did. But 2 hours before the gala, I found myself on that same porch. The paint was chipped, the bushes wild. The place looked tired, like time had finally caught up with it. I rang the bell. No answer. I was halfway back down the steps when I heard the click of the lock. The door cracked open. She looked smaller, gaunt. Gray streaks through her hair, shoulders curled like she'd been carrying something heavy for years. Her eyes landed on me, and for a second, something flickered. Recognition? Regret? Maybe both. She whispered my name. Emily. Like it hurt her throat to say it. I asked one question. Did you know? She didn't ask what I meant. Didn't need to. She stepped outside, pulled her cardigan tighter around her chest, and sank into the porch swing. I stayed standing. I needed to stay standing. I found the letter, I said. The real one. The one I left before I came back. The one he hid. She shut her eyes, let out a long breath, then nodded. Slow. Quiet. I wanted to come after you, she said. I really did. Then why didn't you? She looked down the street, like the answer might be hiding in someone else's driveway. He told me you weren't well, that you'd gotten involved with some older man, that we needed to protect ourselves. He said if I reached out, I'd only make it worse. I stared at her. And you believe that? I did, she whispered. Because I was scared of him too. I didn't feel anger in that moment. Not rage. What I felt was colder. Distance. Detachment. She wasn't the villain, but she was the silence that made his version stick. The ballroom smelled like overcooked salmon and overpriced wine. Laughter echoed off the chandeliers, clinking glasses, fake smile photos taken in front of a massive poster. Celebrating Principal Richard Carter, a legacy of integrity. I stayed near the back, close enough to hear, far enough to stay invisible. Until they called him up. 40 years. A mentor. A pillar. A father figure. Applause erupted as he stepped onto the stage in his perfect navy suit, smiling the smug kind of smile only men with spotless public images know how to wear. Even the mayor was there. I waited for the room to settle. Then I took one step forward. And another. Heads turned. Faces shifted from pleasant curiosity to confusion, to recognition, to discomfort. And then he saw me. Richard Carter. And he froze. The color drained from his face like someone pulled the plug. I didn't look away. I stepped up to the mic. He leaned in, hissed under his breath, Emily, not here. Too late. Hi, I said, steady as stone. I'm Emily Carter. His daughter. Gasps. Fork stopped mid-bite. Murmurs rippled like a breeze through a wheat field. I haven't stood in this room, or even this town, in 10 years, I continued. And that's because 10 years ago, my father told everyone I ran away. Said I was angry, that I disowned him. He told you I left a note. I reached into my coat and pulled it out. This is that note. I read it aloud, slow and clear, so no one could pretend they didn't hear. I love you. I need space. I'll be back Sunday. I looked out at the sea of familiar faces, teachers, neighbors, even my old principal. Some people looked stunned. Some looked down at their plates like they couldn't face it. Does that sound like someone who ran away? Silence. The thick kind that creeps into your bones. Chairs shifted. Eyes darted. A woman in the second row covered her mouth. He stepped toward me, trying to regain control. Emily, that's not the full story. I lifted my hand. Don't. You told your story for 10 years. This one's mine. Someone in the crowd said. Is that why she vanished? Another voice. I remember praying for her. Then Mia stood up, calm and solid. She held up her phone, the scan of the letter glowing on the screen. He hid it, she said. For 10 years he let us believe something that wasn't true. That's when I saw it, his grip on the room loosening, bit by bit. His legacy, this polished image he'd curated with years of discipline and charm, was starting to fray. Thread by thread. Somebody whispered, what else did he lie about? His jaw clenched. Hands shaking. He looked at me like I'd set the fire, but I didn't burn a damn thing. I just lit the truth. And the truth doesn't whisper, it echoes. Once the first crack shows, the whole thing collapses faster than you expect. He tried to keep smiling. Waved his hand like I was just an emotional outburst. But the crowd wasn't buying it. They weren't seeing a leader anymore. They were seeing a stranger. Mrs. Blake, the vice principal for 20 years, stood up. I always wondered why you shut down the theater department so suddenly. Then an old guidance counselor spoke. You told us she had a breakdown. That she was dangerous. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. They were doing it for me. Even the superintendent, the same guy who toasted him minutes earlier, stepped away from the podium. Arms folded. Expression gone cold. Then, from the back of the room, someone said loud and clear, "You made her disappear to protect your image." He didn't argue. Didn't even try. He looked around and saw the truth. The empire he'd built wasn't made of brick. It was built on borrowed belief. And belief? Once it cracks, it crumbles. He backed away from the mic. No apology. No explanation. Just a quiet retreat to his table. Even my mother wouldn't meet his eyes. The slideshow kept running behind him, photos of science fairs, graduations, handshakes, smiling kids. But nobody was watching anymore. Because the story had changed. And so had the man. I didn't stay for cake. While people whispered and servers cleared plates in awkward silence, I slipped out the side door into the cool night. The sky was navy blue. The air hit my lungs like water after a drought. For the first time in years, I could actually breathe. Mia joined me a few minutes later. She didn't say anything at first. Just stood beside me like we were waiting on a bus that wasn't coming. Finally, she said, "You were brave." I shook my head. No. I was overdue. We stood there for a while, the sounds of traffic in the distance, the hotel walls muffling the remnants of what used to be his legacy. It felt like a funeral, but no one had died. They'd just finally been seen. "I think I spent years just wanting someone to believe me," I said. And then I realized, belief wasn't what I needed. I needed the silence to end. Mia nodded. "You ended it." "No," I said. "I reclaimed it." I looked down at the envelope in my hand, the one that was never supposed to be lost. The words that were never supposed to be buried. I didn't need to hand it to him. I didn't need him to read it. He'd heard every word. And so had they. I turned to Mia and smiled. He built his legacy on silence. I took it back. Then we walked away, not as exiles, not as victims, but as women who were done living in someone else's story.